I'm Len Stellian, the Midlife Empowerment Coach, and today I am thrilled to introduce Jayne Nicoletti. Jayne is from New York, has been a stepmom for over 10 years. She has twin stepdaughters who just turned 23 and has been in their lives since they were 9, more than half of their lives. Jayne credits her good relationship with them by speaking with other stepmoms and having her husband's support. Jayne has published advice videos via Stepmom magazine, and she also has her own YouTube channel, which we're going to invite everyone to check out under Jayne Nicoletti, and I'll be putting the link in the comments for sure, so everybody can check out more of Jayne's discussions and topics around being a stepmom. So Jayne, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you around being a stepmom. As you know, I am not a stepmom. I am a mom, also interestingly, of twin 23-year-old daughters.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if we'd made that connection before. So you know where I'm at. Yeah, so we can talk a lot about that. But you were going to talk to us today about some myths about being a stepmom, and I'd love to have a conversation around that. So I'll let you maybe take it away with and share something with us that we can start the conversation with.
Yeah, the number one myth, and I don't care what kind of stepmom you are, I am sure you've heard it, but someone will tell you, and it's usually people on the outside, you knew what you were getting into. I don't think that even biological mothers know what they're getting into when they have the first child. Like, you have children, and you had 2 at once. I can't imagine. You didn't know what you were getting into.
No.
So I don't think that's fair to say to a stepmom, because no, she has no idea. And she's usually going in guns blazing, wants to do the best. And it's hard because, no matter the situation, even if it's a good situation, you're still an outsider, especially in the beginning. And just like any other relationship, you need to cultivate and build a history with your stepchildren.
So I don't even understand what that means. You knew what you were getting into. What are people implying there? Like, because, it's hard, something is hard, so then people say, oh, you knew what you were getting into? Like, I don't even understand what the implication is.
Well, stepmoms sometimes aren't allowed to complain as much as a biological mom. Like, if a biological mom says, oh my God, they're driving me crazy, or like, oh my God, they're so picky when they eat. If a stepmom says it, it comes off as evil and mean. And usually the response is, but you knew what you were getting into.
Oh, I see.
So how can you complain?
Exactly. Right. That sounds, So it sounds very insensitive, first of all, like you don't have a right to have feelings because, you're a stepmom as opposed to a mom. That distinction is really, seems ludicrous to me. So you've had people say that to you.
Oh yeah. I've had people say that, or saying that I was being mean, or like, look at me like I shouldn't complain. Or I get the, oh, you have no idea, you get them 50% of the time, try doing it full time. I mean, I get that, but it doesn't make my struggle any less. As a math, I think it's harder because you go from like 0 to 10. Like, you don't, if you've come into a stepchild's life a little later in life, like you said, I came into life when they were 9, there's things are already established. There's things already done. Like, you can't grow with them at those certain stages. So like, you don't know, you're going in blindly. And especially someone like me, I never had children. So that's a double whammy. So I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That the fact that whether you had biological children or adopted children or children of your own, aside from being from your stepchildren, that also causes a distinction for people in terms of how you're viewed.
Yeah, definitely. If you don't have biological children, it's a double whammy. And if you have children, then you'll get, I've heard this from my other friends, that they'll even say, oh, but your kids are different, you should be more compassionate. And I've seen them struggle. So I think it's all around the same. It's just a double whammy if you don't have kids, because then it's like they throw that knife at you.
Right. And Madeline comments that stepmoms are always walking on eggshells with what they say.
Oh, absolutely. You can never, now listen, I have a great relationship with my stepdaughters. I happen to be lucky, and I'll discuss that later of why I think that is, aside from the fact that they're great. I'm a little biased,
Okay.
but you know, it's like you don't know what to say, and you don't want to overstep your boundary either, because you don't know what their mom is telling them. You don't know what she's saying, and you don't know what the dynamic is in the other house. So it's very hard. And again, if you just say one negative thing that any biological mom would say, you are mean, you know, you're not understanding, you know, why would you say something like that? And it could be the simplest thing, like, you know, my one stepdaughter, and she'll admit it, like she's a picky eater. So if I say that, and I don't even say it in the mean tone, I just say, oh my God, Krista, she's such a picky eater. Let me make something else, or someone will look at me like, what, you know, why would you say that? Whereas if a biological mom said it, they would laugh, and they probably have kids of their own and go, oh, this is what I did. And I wish that people would do that. Instead of looking at you like you're the devil, why not offer some advice? Some mom advice, because you know what, they probably love to hear it. I would have liked to have heard it.
Yeah, and I've got to imagine it really depends on the dynamics, like you said, between the father, the mother, the, you know, and how welcome or not you are into the relationship, the age of the children. So there's got to be just a lot of, you're navigating a lot of relationships here.
Definitely. And I think, like I said, part of the reason, aside from my kids being great, is that their mom became a stepmom about a year later after I came into their life. So she really understood the struggles. So I think that helped a lot.
Yeah.
And I think she genuinely wanted what was best for her children.
Yeah.
And I wish more biological moms would just see that. We're not trying to replace anybody. The mom will always be the mom, but it's just that it's hard. It's really hard. And I think that she knew that. So she didn't cause any problems. I got lucky. I got an ex-wife that didn't. There's plenty that do, but I happen to be in a good situation. And no matter what the situation is, even if it's a good situation, it's still tough. You still sometimes feel like an outsider.
Yeah, and I've got to imagine that it doesn't necessarily get better over time unless the parties, that the attitudes change, you know, that there's, and I love what you said about putting the children first. I mean, when you put the children first, then it shouldn't, you know, stepmom, mom, whatever, everybody is on the same team, as opposed to, you know, trying to, you know, who's first in the kid's eyes. Like, it's not a competition here.
It's not a competition, but you know, I would imagine, and I can understand that a mom is going to feel a little threatened. I know if I had kids, I might be like, who's this woman? You know, what is she doing? But if you already see that they're not overstepping their boundaries and they're being good to your kids, which is number one, then I don't see why there should be animosity and, you know, problems. But sometimes there is.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's another myth that you want to
and this is actually kind of comical, but you know, they usually will assume two things. It's wrapped up in one. Is one, that the man always marries someone younger. I'm 4 years older than my husband.
Oh.
And that the woman is some kind of gold digger.
That's
which I find funny.
Those are common assumptions, you're saying.
Definitely common. And I find funny because if people knew with child support in certain states and between paying for their house or whatever, a woman would be crazy to think that she's going to go into a second marriage with someone, of, you know, their second marriage, thinking they're loaded. That 9 out of 10 times, that's not true.
Right.
So when I first met my husband, he had to move back in with his parents, and we didn't have a lot of money then.
Right.
You know, things changed, but you know, we didn't have a pot to, you know, pee in, and that didn't stop me, and that wasn't true. But a lot of people look at you like that. A lot of people think that.
Yeah. And so what do you do to combat that? Or what do you know, I mean, I guess, you know, you're making videos, you're telling it like it is. It just sounds like that's something that's entrenched. And the whole thing also about the evil stepmom, like, where did that come from? Is that like from fairy tales? What is that?
Definitely fairy tales. Disney has over 10 movies that have stepmoms in it, and they're not nice stepmoms.
Right.
So I don't think the entertainment industry is really helping at all.
Yeah.
They don't paint the picture of the stepmom very nicely. And I think that is just something, little kids see these movies. And then when it happens to them, their parents get divorced. In their eyes, the next woman is going to be evil. So, it perpetuates such an idea and an image of this evil stepmom that she just, she wants the husband all to herself. She's going to take away your dad. It's like all this stuff. And I just wish the entertainment industry would try to portray that a little differently.
And I'm assuming how quickly the stepmom comes into the picture relative to the parents separating and the kids' ages. If it's not immediately like right after the separation, that there's maybe less association on the kids' part with she's swooping in now, and maybe she's the reason my parents separated or whatever. So that's got to be a factor too.
Right. And I met my husband about 1.5 years after he divorced, and people still thought that, there's a couple of people that, said things because I met through his sister. So they thought we had met before. We didn't even meet.
Yeah.
So I was like, I never even met the guy. How could I have even had my eye on him? So, a lot of people they have these perceived notions, and you can't tell them otherwise. And I wish that was so different and they would hear the other side.
I mean, there are going to be instances where the stepmom is somebody the husband left the wife for, right?
That does happen, yes.
That's got to complicate things even more, because then the kids are in a different mindset. The ex-wife is probably, a different mindset. I would think that would be very hard to be a stepmom in that situation.
Yeah. That's a situation that is true. And, I would hate to be in it, but, there are a lot of reasons why people seek out other relationships. Sometimes things are over already, but you can't tell the child that. Right. I mean, there's a lot of, things that go into a relationship, and there's a lot of things that could go wrong, and they're adult things to talk about, and you can't tell the child that.
Right.
So it's very hard because I've seen a lot of parents bite their lip and not say anything. And eventually the child could see, my parents should have never been together. Like, this just wasn't, I could see why now.
Yeah. And it wasn't gonna end well one way or the other. It was heading in a trajectory. It probably was pretty unhealthy in terms of a home environment.
Right. And that's really important too, is that, sometimes it's better for the parents to get divorced because they want to set a better example for their children about relationships and about love. And if it's a toxic environment, it's not good for the child.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you had a third myth you wanted to share with us today.
Yeah. And this is it's a 2-for-1. I'm noticing a lot of younger women that are becoming stepmoms expect their child to call them mom and treat them like a mom and all this stuff. And the thing is, your stepchild is not always going to love you. And the myth is that you love your stepchildren. You don't have to. Again, I got lucky. I hit the lotto. Right. Not everybody does. And it doesn't mean the child's bad. It means a child may be going through something and the situation may change. But a lot of people are like, oh, you gotta love them, you gotta, and it puts this pressure. And then the woman starts to think, well, then what's wrong with me? Why can't I love this child? And sometimes the child is impossible. Maybe they have problems, or maybe the mother, the bio mother, is like feeding stuff in their head, or they have what they call loyalty binds, and they feel like if they love you and they're nice to you, that means they're betraying their mother. So there's a lot of things involved why the child might be acting up. And you don't have to accept them right away. Relationships take time, just like anything, any other relationship.
And so do you take your cues from the kids in terms of, or do you, when you're being introduced, do you call yourself a stepmom, or is it like, do you think of yourself as their mother in a different way? Like, how do you feel like it's important to say you're a stepmom versus a mom?
I always make the distinction when I introduced myself or them or whatever, but there was a couple of times when they were younger and the woman would say, are you their mom? And then like when we would leave, one of my stepdaughters when she was little said, can you just say you're my mom because it's embarrassing?
Oh, interesting.
So there's situations like that where it's not so much about you being their mom. They want you to be their mom. They just don't want everybody to know that they have a stepmom and their parents are divorced.
Right.
But I've always said, and I asked them, does that bother you? Like, no, that's what it is. Like, who cares,
Right.
But
Right. So that's interesting, taking then your cues from the kids too, in terms of how they would prefer you portray
right,
yourself, and if it's just maybe easier socially for them,
right,
especially if you're not, it's like maybe a passing introduction or something. It's not
Mhm.
somebody who's going to be in their lives forever,
Mhm.
necessarily not a, close friend of the family, that you don't have to always say stepmom.
Right. And, quite oftentimes it's people on the outside that will give you trouble. For instance, you may not have trouble with the ex-wife like I don't. I don't trouble, in the beginning there was not trouble, but it was growing pains, but I have no
Yeah.
trouble with them. My husband's fully supportive, which is great. I mean, there are times that, we had arguments, but I would say in the last 8 years, probably not. And, it's the outside people, it's strangers or outside family, distant family that will judge you more, that will say things like, that's not proper, that's not proper. Like I've had people say, oh, you shouldn't say that. I'm like, their mother has no problem with, like,
Right.
why do you
Right.
have a problem? It's
Yeah.
not your business. Like, as long as their mother's okay with certain situations or certain things, it's like people are so judgmental about a stepmom. And I
Right.
can't quite figure out why, unless it's because, like I said, the entertainment industry has painted us to be this way. I don't know. Or is it a person's fear of what might happen in their relationship? Are they deflecting? Is something going on? Like I try to think that, try to have a little compassion and say, maybe they're on the brink of divorce. Maybe they're thinking about it. I don't know.
And you credit a lot of, not a lot, but a good portion of the health of your relationship with your stepdaughters to your husband's support. So like, what is the role of the husband, of the father in this situation in terms of fostering a close or healthy, amicable relationship between the stepmom and his kids?
Right. I actually did a video about this and I think it helped a lot of people. I did an advice for divorced dads because I said, let him say what he thinks. I think the most important thing is that the men should support the women, especially when it comes to like discipline or whatever. Don't always try to be Disney dad because then you're making it look worse for her.
Oh, right.
I'm not saying be mean, but like, when rules are laid down, stick to them. Right. If she's in charge for the day, let's say you have to go to work and she's, playing the parent role, make it clear to the children, you can't do this, don't do this, you're going to be punished. I don't want you doing that. Like there has to be ground rules and then you both have to agree with it. And, he should be there. So if she comes back and says something happened, he should support her instead of saying, oh, it's just this or it's just that. Like I never had that. I know other women. My husband always supported me. He always got my back. And if he didn't, he'd take me in private and we would talk about it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, not in front of the kids.
Never.
Yeah, so that's really great advice. I mean, because I could see how if he was always excusing their behavior and kind of being the fun dad, that's only making you look like, oh, here she's the hard ass who's coming to
right. Then you
stick to the rules. And like
here comes the evil stepmom.
Yeah, exactly. Once again. And what do the kids call you from when they were 9 and you first met them? Is the typical thing to call you by your first name, or like how does that usually work?
Well, I forgot how it came about, 13 years ago. It was a long time, but they call me Jayne, which is what my family, like my close family, calls me Jayne as my nickname. So I like it because I feel like it's family. So I don't mind that they call me Jayne. Like it's fine. Like that's who I am. I'd rather hear that than like stepmom. And then I remember when they were really little, they would call me Steppy.
That's funny.
Yeah. Steppy just stuck. I don't know how.
Yeah.
But I like those things. I find them like terms of endearment. It didn't bother me. You know, I told them, as long as you don't call me the B word, we're fine. You know,
Yeah,
like, call me whatever
exactly.
you want.
Yeah, yeah. We
But
get some boundaries.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd want my audience to know about? I mean, I know have so much you can talk about, but anything else that's kind of you want to make sure that they hear about before we end?
Yeah, just, you know, we covered it. Have a little compassion. You know, this is the first time at their rodeo. They don't always know what they're doing, just like you didn't know what you were doing. You know, listen and, you know, give constructive criticism, you know, not so much criticism, but maybe you have some advice you could give instead of saying, oh, how could you say that? You know, just say, you know, when my kids were this age, you know, maybe try this, see if it works. Let me know. Like, you know, like follow up, ask them how they are, you know, because sometimes they need a break too.
And if you're on the other end of things and you're the mom who is divorced and your husband is marrying somebody else who is going to be the stepmom to your children, like, what do you think the most important thing is to tell her?
Don't feel threatened. We're not trying to take over. We know you are mom. We're never going to change that ever. That's just what it is. It's biologically there. But, you know, have a little compassion. Again, have compassion because, you know, she could be struggling and, you know, try, even if you have animosity with your ex, try to understand this woman just walked in. She doesn't know. She doesn't know what, she wasn't there. She's, you know, an innocent bystander. She's trying her best. You don't have to be her best friend, but be amicable, be nice. And, you know, it's about the children. It's about the kids.
Love it. Well, on that note, thank you so much. I'm going to link to your YouTube channel where you have a lot more videos on, I'm assuming tell us a little bit more about your channel and what kinds of things you have on there.
Okay, well, my channel is a little bit of everything for a woman over, I say 45, but my demographics tell me differently. I cover some lifestyle things. I have a lot of beauty videos, a lot of food stuff, a lot of snacks, food and beauty, but I do have a playlist of stepmom videos that I did in conjunction with Stepmom magazine and some on my own. So if you'd like to check it out,
wonderful.
you'll see the link.
Yeah, we will be putting the link in the comments. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Thanks, Chris. She just jumped in at the end here. Thanks, of course, to Jayne for sharing so much wisdom and really great advice and perspectives for us on whatever end of we are in of the relationship, being a stepmom or with stepmoms. And if you enjoy these videos, please watch for more coming weekly. Until then, be well and stay safe, everybody.
Bye.